Oh, there we go. We are live on the Believe in Monsters podcast. Sorry, I was waiting on the little red timer up at the top to get us going here tonight, guys. Welcome into the Believe in Monsters podcast. We're gonna have a lot of fun tonight talking about the Chicago Bears and what we're doing in the off season. You know us, you love us, you listen to us each and every week. The best podcast about the Chicago Bears. Big thanks to the Believe Network for putting us on each and every week. We recently had our boss Joe DeLeon on from the Believe Network. We appreciate him hanging out with us a week or two ago. You can go back and listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, or on YouTube. We're excited to get this night going. We're here with Chris Krogman and Lucas Berry. I'm Joe Gaither. We're going to talk about the Combine. We're going to talk about some franchise tags. And the Chicago Bears released a guy. Is it a big deal or not? Our guys Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus met with the media. So let's get into it. We don't want to wait around any longer. Father Chris Krogman, how was your week? It's great to see you. Are you pumped up for Combine Week?
Yeah, rumors are going to start flying. It's going to be really exciting. A week has been good so far. We're closing out the month strong. 4 straight months of 100% commission or better. So love to see it. Love to hear it. Love to collect them paychecks.
Proud of you.
But very exciting Combine Week. We'll get into more about opening comments and so on and so forth and players and such. But Lucas Beardy, I should say, your beard is looking phenomenal as you stroke all of the frothy foam out of it. Lucas was enjoying a blueberry bear beer, as it were.
Without context, that sounds a little bit gross. Probably sounds a little bit gross with context, but
that's why I gave it the context. Well, the last thing I said to you before we went live was really gross, so let's just leave that out.
Well, that happened before we went live, so no one on the podcast will know what Chris said.
Baby.
But I'm doing great. This is finally the last season, and I was in the rearview mirror, even though the Super Bowl was only a few weeks ago. I love the Combine. I love the NFL draft. So this is like Christmas Day to a Bears fan or a bad football team fan. This is what you look forward to. So we're underway. I mean, these guys are getting into Indy. We had our coach and GM press conference today. The rumor mill is flying. I feel like every day ESPN does a segment on whether or not Justin Fields should be traded. I am absolutely sick of that at this point. Guys like Colin Cowherd are changing, flip-flopping every day. Now Cowherd's saying, yeah, they should keep Fields and trade the number 1 pick, even though last week he was saying, oh, they got to trade Fields because he can't throw. What is it, man? I mean, this is crazy. I'm so sick of that nonsense. So that is the one part of the offseason I hate. But Combine Week is here.
It's just noise, man. It's just noise. I filter that shit out.
I mean, I do too. It annoys me, like how dumb some of it is. Like some of these guys just, I don't know.
Why? Because they get paid to do this and we don't. And we're just sitting here with like good takes, and their takes are just so shitty. And they just have massive audience because they just say a bunch of dumb shit to get clicks. I do not like clickbait. I will give you that.
Yes, that's what it is. In simple
the
terms,
issue is, Luke, they got to go on every single day, and they want to placate to different audiences. One week it's, oh, Justin Fields is the man, and the next week is, oh, they should trade him. So what, 6-8 months down the line, whenever Justin does amazing or terrible, they can go back and play their clip and say, hey, look, see, I was right.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, but I don't know. Guys like Louis Riddick, I know he got on Bears fans' bad side, but he went out there and basically said it how it is earlier this year. He said the Bears would be terrible, and they were. And, Bears fans gave him a lot of crap, but he was right, and he pointed that out. And, he came back out and said they would be dumb to trade Fields at this point, and they should, keep rolling with him. So guys like that, I definitely appreciate who have worked in NFL circles, so their opinion definitely holds some weight. But I mean, let's kick this off here already. I mean, the NFL, the tag deadline, we're in the middle of that. That's going to end next week. The Commanders have cut Carson Wentz, and as soon as that happened, I think we all had a feeling that Payne would be tagged, and he was. So he is going to stay with the Commanders for at least one more season, unless some kind of sign and trade happens. That was a massive Bears free agent target to a lot of the fan base, even though we kind of said before it probably wasn't super realistic. But I mean, how you guys feeling about that? And are you okay with the Bears pivot options, heading into free agency?
Chris, you want to take that to the lead and I'll go next?
I think we pretty much we knew this was a possibility. We've talked options from jump with Hargraves from Philly or
Draymond Jones.
Draymond Jones. I almost said Deron Payne just because that's what
Draymond Green.
Draymond Jones.
Not Draymond Green.
Draymond Payne. Hey, I don't know. One of those guys. As a potential fit. There's other defensive tackles out there as well. Jones. So I think there are some pivots. And even if we end up with Justin Jones coming back as the main three alongside some other upgrades, either at the other defensive tackle or defensive ends, I think they'll still be fine. Obviously, Payne would have been good. He put up career numbers last year, which who knows if that's just him excelling as an improved player or if it's he wants to get paid and it's I don't know.
Well, we've seen former NFL scouts go out and say that he only played so well because it was a contract year. So maybe it's a good thing that the Washington Commanders are franchise tagging him, but that's only the first step for the Commanders. They now have to decide if they're going to extend him for a long-term deal, if Deron Payne is going to sign the franchise tag. Just because they have said and announced that they're going to put him on the franchise tag doesn't inherently, at the moment, mean that that's how it's going to end up for the Commanders. But what it does mean it kind of puts them in limbo. Are they going to pay $90 million for their two interior defensive linemen with the Alabama guys, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne? Or are they going to be willing to part with Montez Sweat or with Chase Young, who really didn't play at all last year? And if that is the case, can the Bears scoop up maybe a Chase Young? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth that risk. I mean, Chase Young in his when he's full throttle is a hell of a player, but I'm kind of concerned about his status after not playing a whole lot last year at all. So it's interesting. I think it means more for us having. I think it's more important now for the Bears to scoop up a solid defensive tackle in the draft, whether it be Jalen Carter or somebody in the top in that second round pick. I think you can't bring back Justin Jones. I'm sorry, Chris. The way the defensive line looked last year, it was just getting pushed around, and I'd like to see all new fresh faces up there. It sucks that Payne did get franchise tag, but Chris, like Chris mentioned, we kind of all knew that was going to be their number one option. I had Commanders fans saying there's no way you're getting Deron Payne. So we'll see what happens. We're definitely going to have to pivot, but I think it makes me more in the camp of let's make sure we get Jalen Carter at 4 in this upcoming draft.
Well, you bring up a good point, Joe, in that the defensive line was getting pushed around last season, other than Justin Jones, because he was probably the bright spot on that line. But the Bears did release everybody's favorite fall guy, Al-Qadim Muhammad, because he was terrible last year. There was no reason for that guy to be signed. I've never seen a worse addition in free agency, especially coming from the coach's former team. I was unimpressed every single time I watched that guy line up, put his hand in the dirt and literally do nothing. Either get washed out, couldn't hold the edge, couldn't rush the passer. Might have fallen into a couple of sacks this year, but in all honesty, that guy was terrible. What are you guys' thoughts on Muhammad?
Yeah, so this is what's crazy. I mean, I agree with you. He was absolutely horrible, but as we've said, this Bears defensive line is devoid of talent everywhere, and they were not good last year at all. So the fact that they are releasing a guy who had success under Eberflus previously is very telling on where they're at, how much money they have, and just how bad Muhammad was last year. To your point about Justin Jones, he probably was the Bears' best defensive lineman last year. I'm with Chris. I want him back. I think would be a solid rotational piece. I definitely don't think he should be, playing every snap. They could definitely add another bigger name free agent, but I like Justin Jones in a rotation.
I'd be fine with that. I don't want to be the lead guy.
Right. No, I get you. I'm on board with that. But having him in a rotation, I think, is fine. And as we saw in the Super Bowl, having these deep defensive and offensive lines is just massive. A point that I wanted to talk about going into free agency is, how far does Ryan Poles think the Bears are away? I mean, if we just look at the two guys Chris brought up, Javon Hargrave was coming off a career high in sacks. I think he had 11 and a half and, a ton of pressures, and he's an elite run stopper, but he's approaching 30, versus a guy like Draymond Jones, who maybe isn't as good against the run, but he's entering his prime. He's had 5 or 6 sacks every year in the league, and he's only going to be 26. How far away does Ryan Poles think the Bears are? Like, maybe, in my opinion, Hargrave is better than Draymond Jones right now, but maybe he doesn't even look at Hargrave just because of the age factor and how far away he thinks the Bears are. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, how the Bears go into this free agency, and how they are kind of scoring guys who are, maybe a little bit older.
Yeah, and I agree, Luke, in the age factor when you're talking about Jones versus Hargrave. And I think Poles has either mentioned, I don't know if he talked about it today or recently has talked about he likes guys going into their second contract. That's clearly not Hargrave. But, they do have what Poles called flexibility in free agency. They have buckets of talent. So whether or not Hargrave fits into the top bucket of talent, but the bottom bucket of age and length of use or how many years of service you're going to get out of him, that's yet to be determined. So it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize this money that they have, because we obviously know they have a cap floor of 120 or something like that.
Yeah.
Haven't seen any extensions yet. So we're gonna find out. And he also, Poles, discussed a little bit today about finding the right defensive lineman and looking for the guys that fit that hits principle or hits philosophy. So I don't know if Jones or Hargraves, which one of those two kind of fits that mold.
To your first question, Luke, am I nuts to think that that this team should compete for a playoff spot next year if the assets are allocated correctly? Not Super Bowl winners or anything, but compete for a playoff spot.
I don't think you're crazy. I mean, I think that definitely should be the goal. But
so you say, so with that in mind, you say, how far away are we? Aren't we too? Wouldn't you say you're next year you're competing for a playoff spot? The following year, so what? 23, you're competing for a playoff spot, and 24. Hey, we got some real expectations.
I would agree. I just think that age in the NFL hits you fast. Once you're kind of over that 30 hump, it's like it gets kind of sketchy. I mean, look what happened with Akeem Hicks. I mean, Akeem Hicks just.
Prince Amukamara did the same thing too.
They just deteriorated. I mean, that going back to that free agency where the Bears had that where the Bears had that run, man. I mean, all them guys, like within that 1 year, I felt like they aged like an eternity. Like after that playoff run, after that playoff run, am I wrong? Like all those guys just completely fell apart, and that's
Trevathan fell apart.
That's what I mean. So like, yeah, you would want them to compete for a playoff spot next year, but how far away are they from a Super Bowl? I mean, we're probably talking two to 3 years from that, probably.
Sure.
And then in that aspect of it, if you're bringing in a guy who's 26, he's 29 at that point versus 34, 35 years old. So a lot of things the way. I just think it's interesting. I mean, I think we did see Ryan Pace signed a lot of those dudes who were toward the end of their prime and kind of just fell apart shortly after. So I'm not saying what Poles should or shouldn't do. I'm just saying I'm interested to see how he approaches this. Like maybe a guy like Hargrave isn't even on his radar, even after missing on Payne. So we will see. But then to your point, Joe, maybe he says, oh, wow, we can get a Javon Hargrave and then draft a Jalen Carter to be his predecessor right after. So that's an option as well. I mean, the options are pretty much endless with the Bears draft capital and money to spend.
What do you think about the possibility of getting Chase Young if the Commanders just say, we got too much money tied up in this front?
Meh.
Okay.
I'm concerned at this point. I mean, he's coming off an injury. His first year wasn't phenomenal. So I mean, how are we acquiring said Chase Young? Are we, if they don't pick up his 5th-year option, which they could, and still control him for essentially 2 more years at a fairly reasonable price, then I mean, we're talking too far away for me to even say whether or not I would want Chase Young. I mean, he's at number 2 pick overall, looked great in college, but so did Javon Clowney, and he's bounced around to like 6 teams.
But Jadeveon Clowney's had a good career, even though he's been on 6 teams. I mean, he's been a solid player pretty much everywhere he's gone.
He's like the defensive Brandon Cooks. Like, why does this guy keep getting traded? He's just good. I don't get it. But here we are.
Because you want to know the truth? He's got a bad attitude. He's lazy.
Man. Can you imagine if he wasn't?
For me personally, I mean,
he once told Steve Spurrier he wasn't going to run sprints at practice. He said, I ain't doing that.
I feel like I vaguely remember that. But, I mean, he really did. I mean, that bowl game hit really skyrocketed his draft stock. And I think the big thing about Clowney, now we're going off on a tangent here, is that I don't think he's ever been as good of a pass rusher as people think he's a very good overall football player.
Sure.
He's not really a pass rusher, which is to be in that elite edge D-end category, you got to be able to run. He's not that guy, and he never will be. I mean, he had that hit in the bowl game, but he's just overall a good player. So living up to that number 1 draft stock is a lot. But to your point, Joe, talking about Chase Young, I mean, in the Ryan Poles presser today, he threw out a bombshell, not really a bombshell, but he said trading before the free agency period is something that the Bears are going to consider in one of their many scenarios. He talked about many scenarios of them trading that pick. Is there a team that has a player that you think would possibly trade for the number 1 pick that would also give us said player in a package that you guys would want? Think maybe Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, do you think that's even a remote possibility that the Titans would do something like that to get their quarterback? Or do you think that is just pure Bears Twitter?
Nah, dude.
Riffraff?
What about Brian? What about Brian Burns?
Dude. Brian Burns from Carolina. I don't think he's gonna. They wouldn't move him at the deadline last year when they were let Ella.
See, I think Carolina's actually close, and I think with a quarterback they could potentially compete for that bad division.
Yeah,
I mean, the Titans are in a bad division as well, but I think their roster is in a little bit of a different area where a Jeffrey Simmons might be realistic. But I mean, what do you guys think about that, Chris and Joe?
I think you're dead on, Luke. I think Carolina could go all in.
Yeah.
Their fan base doesn't think so, but I don't know. I mean, who's there? I was just reading that today their owner wants to
David
push.
Tepper.
Yeah, Tepper wants to push, and he's wanting to find that quarterback. But I mean, we've talked about a player already that I think would fit in with the Colts trade, and that's Kenny Moore.
Yeah, Kenny Moore. I think that's a major possibility.
And then you have, and Kenny Moore represents, what did we say? Like a 4th? I said like a 4th round value. I don't know what he really represents. I feel like inconsistent, I think, is probably a decent word. He's missed time. So, I mean, that's just one. I mean, what if the Texans are like, hey, we'll throw Laramie Tunsil in?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think Brett Coleman mentioned that in one of his Bears rebuild videos that, Tunsil's going to be due for an extension soon. And I mean, I don't know why the Texans would get rid of him, but I mean, it's definitely interesting to sweeten the pot to get that number one pick. I mean, the possibilities are endless. But I think if we look back on some of the major NFL draft trades, they all happen around free agency or shortly after free agency, before the end of March. So I don't think it's too far-fetched, even if the Bears don't acquire a player, perhaps, to say a deal gets done by the end of next month or this month, because tomorrow's March 1st. What do you guys think? Do you guys think the Bears will get rid of this pick before April, or do you think they'll get rid of it closer to the draft in April?
I think it's going to be before April. I think they're been already well on their way to finding a trade partner and finding what the right compensation will be.
Sure,
I think that
sure sounds like it with the way they're pumping up Schefter and Rapp and all them guys.
So I think the business is probably booming over there, and they're going to have it settled before draft month. And we can move and we can talk about them trading down to 2 with the Texans. If they lock in a deal with the Texans, I think that you could see the Bears hold that number 2 pick until draft night, and then boom, move again on draft night. I think that's what Ryan Poles really wants to do, is move twice if he can, but still stay high up in the top 10, up in the top 6 or so. So that's kind of my prediction.
So what I think is, regarding the pre-draft talk, is this week is going to be crucial for the quarterbacks involved. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, but especially Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, who's already gaining a ton of momentum for apparently no good reason. I mean, I don't get it.
It's because he's Cam Newton, bro.
Yeah, so now people are they're pre-underwear workouting this guy. He's like, with the NFL going in the Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson way of quarterback, Anthony Richardson runs a 4.4. He's humongous. He's shredded. He's got 2% body fat. He, can bench. He can bench a bajillion pounds, and he can throw the ball as far as Jamarcus Russell on his knees. So, hey, awesome. Move up to 1 and you get your guy. So I think, the talk has been about not having a clear-cut number 1. That doesn't necessarily muddy the waters to me. To me, that just creates more confusion and more smoke around what can happen. So, Poles at the presser today talked about doing their due diligence, looking at the quarterbacks involved. I'd be interested to see if they talk to all these guys and then start even more smoke. Oh, man, have you met with Will Levis? That guy is smart. With a good offensive line around him, he could really light it up, And then they can manipulate, potentially get Houston to move up to 1 and maybe not get the, super haul or whatever. But now you have 3 more quarterbacks that teams are foaming at the mouth for potentially, and just as much of an opportunity to drop back to 7, 9, whatever. Still have an opportunity at a good defender, or if you really want to get froggy and leap at JSN because people are hyping him up already, then fine. Just because Justin Fields said he wants a former Ohio State player, who freaking cares? He could have said he wanted Paris Johnson, and everybody take that guy number 1, take him number 1. It's a done deal, But that was ridiculous. Sure, Justin would love to have JSN in the locker room, but he hasn't played for a year, and then he injured the year before that. So yeah, I'm not jumping at that. So I think it's going to be an interesting week for the quarterbacks.
Well, Chris, you actually bring up a good point. Like the Bears, Poles said he's going to meet with these quarterbacks. We'll actually see what happens. But to your point, I mean, could they basically be meeting with these guys to either pump up their draft value or to potentially ask these guys what other teams are talking to them about to like maybe gauge interest in them? So I don't know if that's really a game that NFL teams play. I feel like you could play a little reverse psychology there to see, who's interested in these guys and what possibilities are possible. But you are absolutely right that this is going to be a fascinating week. I think the quarterbacks go on Saturday, so we won't see from them. And Bryce Young is not going to be throwing, which is interesting to see how much he can gain or lose. I think his draft stock will either be made or lost, just depending on strictly his weigh-in. I think Mel Kiper said if he weighs in at 195 pounds or above, he'll be cemented as the quarterback one. But if he comes up in a little bit short, maybe his cleats aren't, too tall or whatever. If he comes in at 5'10", 189 pounds, we'll see. But the I like you said, Chris, the quarterbacks have. It's going to be fascinating to see what the kind of draft stock rises and falls, hits.
You bring up you hits. That's funny. You bring up a good point, Lucas, with the quarterbacks in the interviews. If I'm Poles, I want to be more or less the last team that interviews these guys, and kind of see who they've gone through already. Like, oh yeah, Indianapolis was talking to you a lot, and I saw you interviewed with them. I don't know, man. That could be a great spot for you, and then just let it run. Just ask them those open-ended questions, and just let these guys talk themselves into giving you more information than they probably really should. But that's okay.
Interesting reverse psychology. Joe's laughing. Joe, do you think that's not a thing that happens? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. I mean, as a GM, I would definitely take advantage of a teenage kid who might be speaking too much to get his chance in the league.
Well, okay, put yourself in Young or Levis or Richardson. Well, what do they have to gain, or what do they have to lose by being forthright and saying, "Oh, the Panthers are really interested in me. Oh, the Colts are really interested in me."
We can make that happen for you at number one, Will. That's what he has to gain by it. Okay, cool. Where do you want to play? Be the number one pick, Will Levis. Tell us which team is most interested in you, and we can work with that team to make it happen for you and pump it up as you're doing him a favor. Just like we saw the Blackhawks do for Patrick Kane and basically give him away to the Rangers because that's where he wanted to go. We could see the same kind of psychology used to, trick a kid into telling him he's going to go to the Texans or whatever. And then
look at a guy like Caleb Williams already. I mean, he's already spouting off 4 or 5 teams that he wants to play for next year. Oh, I would love to play for that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like these guys are like, who knows, man? You could definitely get them to give you some info they probably shouldn't be getting out of them, I think.
Caleb Williams. He's going to be the best player I don't like for a long time. I don't know why. I just got to.
Is it the painted fingernails or
I just don't care for fingernails? Him. I just don't care for him. I mean, I think he does some shit that makes me want to fucking punch air. But I don't think it's going to work. His shit's not going to work in the NFL. That's all I'm saying.
We'll see.
I'll probably be wrong.
Joe, you're skeptical, so you don't think that Chris and I are on for something, or I'm curious. I'm just spitballing.
No, I think that will absolutely happen. I think that you're definitely asking how your meetings with other teams went. That I definitely think so. But I don't know. I don't know what kind of advantage it is. Like, okay, of course, we know that the Colts are interested in, let's just hypothetically, CJ Stroud. And, you want to go number one? Well, they all want to go number one. And they all want to go where they want to go, but we don't care. We don't care about that. That's irrelevant. We want the best deal.
Yeah, but you can use that as leverage for sure.
Right. That's exactly right.
When
Exactly.
you're on the
So,
phone.
hey,
Oh, hey,
Carolina's
Cole.
super interested in me.
Right.
Now you have leverage to go back to Carolina and be like, hey, word around the campfire is you might be really interested in CJ Stroud.
But the Colts want him too. Okay. All right.
Or so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting
40
psychology here.
chess. We love it. We love it. Well, we'll see. I mean, you know that all kinds of scheming is already started in Indianapolis with everybody arriving. So it's gonna be an interesting week, and I think you nailed it, Chris, with the quarterbacks. No reason to kind of rehash on that. I think it would be great for the Bears if Anthony Richardson had a great combine. It'd be great for the Bears if Bryce Young weighed in at 190 at 5'11", 195. He's not going to, but it would be awesome. We have to hope for all these quarterbacks to really blow it out of the water, and I think if that happens, you really can start to see some of these teams get really hungry.
I saw something earlier where a player had added like 11 pounds of muscle since the offseason.
Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers, yeah. So like maybe Bryce added 11 pounds of muscle,
Oof,
or
no
cheeseburgers. I don't care.
Right? 13 pounds of muscle. There's no freaking way. In
not
4
in,
weeks, they said.
Not in 4 weeks, no. You can't, man, it's hard to lose that much like weight in that amount of period. I mean, it's not possible unless
whatever.
He's going to be tested. Anyway.
Even then, I don't even know if it would be possible.
He's all like NFL's immediately like, sir, we're going to need to see you over here, sir. That's pretty funny.
What else? I mean, are there any guys you guys are looking forward to seeing at the combine?
Well, I am looking forward to seeing JSN. I'm sorry, Chris. I am looking forward to seeing JSN. And I am kind of opposite on your take. I think that if he's there at the right spot, you take him.
What's the right spot is the question. And I'm not disagreeing with you. And I'm
the
not
right
saying I'm
spot
not looking forward to seeing him. I'm just saying, like, there's people out there talking about taking him at number 1.
No. Stupid.
Okay, then.
Stupid. Those people are fools. The right spot for JSN right now in my heart of hearts, my first thought was 15 to past 15.
Mm-hmm. See, I was thinking 15 is probably the highest I would take him.
Sure. And if you can get him past 15 at 16, 17, 18, 19,
Right. But at that point, you've traded down at least twice. You're probably not trading all the way down to 16 or whatever with the Commanders or whatever.
Let's use your Carolina example, for example. And let's say the Bears trade down to 9 and you have your choice of any wide receiver on the board or, I don't know, pick your poison. You could say Peter Skoronski or any wide receiver of your choosing are on the board. Would you take JSN there? Or would you take another receiver over him?
Yeah. See, that's the problem.
It'd be hard to take him at 9 for me.
What's the difference between 9 and 15? What's the difference between 9 and 15 if that's the guy you really like?
That's not hard. That's not hard. If he becomes wide receiver 1, if he becomes what everybody says he's going to be, take him. Take him at 9. Take him.
Well, I'm saying you can have your choice of any wide receiver, Chris. So QJ, you could have Jordan Addison, you could have JSN, you can have any receiver you want, or Peter Skoronski or Miles Murphy. You can have any of those guys.
I would probably I wouldn't take Skoronski because I don't think he's a tackle, and I think 9's absurd for a guard.
Can we take Michael Mayer?
That's my own personal take. Yeah, can we take Michael Myers? I'll take him. No, I think I would almost rather take one of the tackles, like Paris Johnson or Broderick Jones, rather than
even if they sign a Mike McGlinchey or someone like that in free agency.
Well,
would you still take a tackle?
I mean, we're just talking about a bunch of what ifs. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. No.
All right, let's go.
Do you want to just eliminate all possibilities until I fit your narrative?
I'm just throwing out scenarios.
No, you're like eliminating scenarios to where I'm forced into taking
Well, no,
JSN
I'm just
at
saying,
9.
like I think my argument is that if you're putting a cap on where you would draft him, like to me, I don't think there's a huge difference in drafting him at 9 or 15. Like if you're going to
So
take
if
him at
he's-
15, I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, if his medicals show out and he's fine and everything looks good on the numbers and everything like that, I guess you consider it, but I still think it's too high. I mean, there were people saying like Joe was saying last week or whatever, like he still had questions to answer coming into this year, and he didn't answer those questions because he didn't play.
Right.
So I don't know. Makes me a little concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It's going to be, like we said, we got to wait for free agency before we can even go through half of this mess, just because hopefully the Bears are in a spot where they can just take whoever's rated highest on their board at whatever position they're picking, as opposed to trying to fill, needs. But
what if they took that corner from wherever, that like number
Illinois
1 corner? I don't know.
There's like this corner class is weird, man. There's like 4 or 5 different corners I've seen as cornerback 1 in this class. Just really pick your poison. There's Gonzalez from Oregon.
That's the one.
Witherspoon from Illinois. There's Keely Ringo from Georgia.
Man, I've seen Kylie Ringo go as low as like 20.
Bleep that
I've
guy.
seen. Yeah. He had QJ locked up in the national championship.
He's a bastard.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit overrated.
We should just wait on corner for next year for a young man named Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Is this another Will Anderson Bama shenanigans where you're going to tell us he's the Jesus, and then halfway through next year you're going to be like, yeah, he's okay. I mean, his name is Kool-Aid, so why would we take him?
I haven't backed off Will that hard.
Yeah,
you were high on him, dude. You were.
It's not like you don't like him still.
I'm still
but
high on him.
But you're not like.
I'm still high on him. My thing is here's the deal. I have I look.
You're worried about Bears fans.
Yes.
But Joe, I think
Yes,
at this point last year, listen, man, I think at this point last year, you would have said the Bears are dumb if they trade back and don't take Will Anderson.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that's how good you were saying he was. And I'm not trying to bust your balls, but I do think that's about the amount of hype you were giving him, that he is like, you cannot pass this guy up. You have to take him if you have a chance. But now.
Yeah, the same thing you were saying about, oh my God, the Steelers running back.
Najee Harris.
Najee, you were saying Najee Harris is the best running back on the face of the planet since he's been a senior in high school.
He is.
You were saying the same thing about Will Anderson, if not more so.
What would the Steelers have been last year without Najee Harris?
But that's not the point.
What would the Steelers have been 2 years ago without Najee? He's a motherfucker.
They probably would have had the same record.
Sure. I missed all of their playoff wins that Najee brought them.
Hey, you know what? Running back is a devalued position for a reason.
So either way, I'm just saying your comps for Will Anderson were through the roof. And
he is. I think he's still a very special player. I do. Mm-hmm. I'm just nervous because our fans, if he doesn't get a sack every game, it's going to be, he sucks.
That's a silly reason to not like somebody.
I
do
like him. It's just kind of like I know what
put your money where your mouth is. Forget these fans.
I did.
I say it with your chest.
Did I not? Was I off the air or on the air when I said if the Bears draft Will Anderson, I will buy 3 Will Anderson jerseys, 1 for each of us.
But that's like a somewhat irrelevant.
That's right, Chris. Yeah, you better stop poking Joe, man. He owes us jersey. So
I don't know what to do. Like, I like the guy. I think he's special.
We're just busting your chops, Joe.
Just
busting your chops.
He's gonna be a good player.
But I will say, if the Bears draft Will Anderson, if they draft Will Anderson, I mean, you're not wrong. I will be expecting him to have 7 to 8 sacks next year as a rookie.
And he's gonna.
And I think that's a fair expectation as a top 5 pick as an edge rusher.
Yeah, you're right.
To have 7 to 8 sacks, and I don't. Or if he has like an insane amount of hurries or something like that. Like he's getting there and maybe the sacks don't go, whatever. But the expectations will be there for him to have that, a decent, close to an Aiden Hutchinson type season, I would say, is what the expectation should be for a guy of his caliber.
I don't think that's out of balance. I just think that the
but
Bears,
see,
if
Joe-
you're going to make that move, you need to make sure that you get another defensive lineman or another edge, but somebody so the offensive line doesn't all get shifted down towards him.
But see, Joe didn't like Aiden Hutchinson. He thought his sister was a better prospect.
His sister is a great prospect. Hall of Fame prospect. Hall of Fame potential.
Well, the other thing we took from the press conference today is that Eberflus and Poles like length out of their linemen. Joe, do you think Will Anderson possesses the length they like?
Yeah, his hands come down to his kneecaps. He's got length. Let's see.
Do you think he'll measure well at the combine?
Yes, I do. I do.
All right. Do you think he'll measure well? Do you think he'll run? Is he going to run at the combine?
I'll be surprised. I bet you a lot of the Bama guys, especially the top end, will save their stuff for the pro day. I mean, you'll get Bama sending 13 prospects, and like the bottom 7, they'll probably all participate, but the top 6 will probably all save their stuff for pro day. 6'4",
what kind of 40 time do you think this man runs? 4.6?
4.19.
No, come on. What do you think he runs?
I think he runs 4.6.
I think it is going to be important to see how much he weighs, to be honest with you, because I think for a 4.3 D end, you would want to see him maybe over 250 pounds at least. You don't want to see him in the low 240s or whatever. So I think how he measures will definitely be important for how high he goes. The guy I've been talking about of worrying the Bears drafting over Will Anderson is Tyree Wilson, who I think is just an insane athlete, an insane human being. His measurables are going to be off the chart. So I just hope Will Anderson hits, some decent benchmarks at the combine so they can ease some of those concerns compared to a guy like that. Or even a Myles Murphy. I think Myles Murphy is going to blow the combine out of the water. I think he's going to have one of the best combines we've ever seen, to be honest with you. That guy's insane. But I don't like him as a football player.
Tyree Wilson, recovering from fractured foot, will skip most drills at the combine.
Yeah. We'll see how he measures, though. But, that's the foot injury is never a good one. Didn't Pernell McPhee have a foot injury?
Yeah.
Was that what it was? Was it a foot or an ankle or something?
I thought it was a knee.
A knee. Yeah, he had some kind of weird nagging injury that he never got right from. Yeah, it's not good for a prospect coming out to have an injury like that. No. I know Jalen Carter's not going to be working out the combine.
Terrible. Terrible. Any other offensive linemen we think could make jumps? I know Poles talked about offensive line being
in the draft. You mean, Chris?
Yeah, in the draft.
Yeah, this offensive line class is, I guess, a little bit. I don't think it's too top heavy. I think Skoronski's the top rated dude, but like you said, Chris, if he's not going to play tackle in the NFL, I would not take him that high. But I do think with Skoronski, at least, even though he'll probably have, shorter arms or whatever, I do feel like he's a very safe pick. Sure. I feel like if you added him to your team, he would be he has a very solid floor.
Is he Quentin Nelson?
No, I don't think he's Quentin Nelson.
Well, then, sorry. Brugler has him top 5.
Yeah. I wonder how the NFL.com rates him. I do love the NFL. Do you ever read the NFL.com scouting reports with the breakdowns of the players and what kind of grade they give them?
Don't they usually do a comp too?
Yeah, they do. I'm interested to see who his is. They had Will Anderson and Jalen Carter both rated over 7, which is Pro Bowl potential, which is generally you don't see that. I mean, over a 7 is really solid. So
yeah. Usually,
Jalen Carter was their highest rated on there. 7.11. Peter Skoronski. He's a 6.73. They have him projected as a year 1 starter. They have him comped to Zach Martin. That's actually a good comp, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, polls at the presser today talked about offensive line was always a priority. They said they'll be open-minded about the spots that are out there, especially because he has been pretty high on Braxton Jones. But, let's say Laramie Tunsil becomes available somehow. I mean, is he a better option there at left tackle? So that's what we're dealing with here. So I'm wondering, Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones. I know there were some Senior Bowl candidates that made some big noise. I don't know if they're going to jump to top 10, but I don't know, maybe top 15 or at least first round. So
they talk about length. I mean, DeJuan Jones, that dude is insane. DeJuan Jones is going to measure out of this world at the combine. So maybe that's a guy they would target if they traded back. I think if the Bears traded back further in the first round, I think that's kind of like a prime spot for offensive line. To your point, Chris, a lot of those Senior Bowl dudes like Darnell Wright, DeJuan Jones, I think all them guys probably go mid-first round, to be honest with you. And probably adding a tackle in the first round is definitely probably more of a priority than a guard, obviously, right?
Oh, yeah.
I would think so. To me, I mean, guards are, I feel like a super guard, like a Quentin Nelson is a nice to have. That's hey, we're there, but if we get this guy, our run game is going to be ridiculous. Right. We have 4 other amazing offensive linemen. Not dime a dozen necessarily, but definitely third round or later type position for me as far as importance.
Yeah, the Quentin Nelson
right up there with safety.
I agree with that. The Quentin Nelson's definitely the often thrown around too much generational type prospect that you would take there, but I don't think Skoronski is quite that good. So, but depending on where the Bears trade, O-line would be a solid get in the middle of the first round.
I mean, I think it'd be a position to look at in the second too. I mean, if they, especially if they say they drop to drop one spot with Houston and end up with 33 or whatever it is, that could be a spot they look at, one of the Senior Bowl tackles, or if they fall, because, Senior Bowl is great and all, but it'll make people go back and look at tape, but it's not necessarily going to launch guys into the next stratosphere. It could, but
now, Joe, I'm gonna come right back to you with this question I have, because looking at this free agency class, this wide receiver class isn't great. I mean, the top guy is Jakobi Meyers. Do you think the Bears, let's say they trade back and get a second round pick, so they have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds this year. Do you think they have to feel forced to draft a wide receiver on day 1 or 2 this year, or do you think, still let the board fall to you and go from there?
Well, my natural answer is always to let the board fall to you, no matter what, and to be disciplined that way. But goodness gracious, with the free agency class being so poor, and the draft class isn't that great. I mean, it's good, but it's got some players, but there's some players up at the top, and you're gonna have to make a move for them if that's what you're gonna want. Luke, I'm with you. I think that you are going to have to get Justin Fields, a guy, with those first couple of picks, and whether it is Quentin Johnson, whether it is Jackson Smith and Jigbo, or Jordan Addison, Flowers, like any of those guys. I think that, I think it's a priority to come away with a defender, a pass catcher, and probably a pass protector in the first 3 picks.
Yeah, it would be ideal. What do you think, Chris?
I think Joe kind of makes a good point about the wide receiver class not being great. And hey, maybe even 57 is an opportunity to add a Zay Flowers or a what's the kid, Josh Downs, or I can't remember what is Flowers from BC, or is that
Flowers is from
yeah,
BC.
Yeah, okay. Or I mean, maybe one of these guys falls to the second round and you can move up like Jackson Smith and Jigba or Jordan Addison. I don't see it happening, but the fact that there's probably not a top 10 receiver in this class pushes everybody down a peg. Right. So to me, that makes more guys available in the second round, and you can let the board fall to you a little bit more and not force anything. Now,
but I'm saying, do you think they should feel like they have to do it in the first 2 days? Like, do you think, Chris, they have to come away with a receiver on the first 2 days, or else it's a fail? Or do you think they could?
We're assuming nothing happens in free agency or a trade.
Just assume they're going to sign a mid-level guy.
I think you're out of spots at that point. I mean, because I think, I think what 2 are definitely locked up. Probably 3 with Velus Jones, and didn't they re-sign
ESB?
And they have ESB. So now you you 2 spots. I don't know. I think like Eberflus made a point to say that playmaking wide receivers are important and how much they contributed in the playoffs. So I think they will be leaning that way, but to me, Poles doesn't feel like. Look what he did last year. We've seen we've seen him last year where we were like, okay, go get this free agent offensive lineman. You're going to get Justin Kill. Go get this free agent wide receiver. Justin doesn't have anybody to throw to, and that's not what happened. So this year's going to be completely different because of the assets available, but. Yeah, I don't like feeling like they have to. So, I think the fan base is going to feel that way, but I don't think they will. No.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, I'm slightly worried about the wide receiver room for sure. Because like you said, I agree with Eberflus when he said, the playmaking wide receivers, every team has them. And, Mooney and Claypool are nice receivers, but they are, I don't know. I think the Bears definitely have to try and take a swing maybe in round 2 and try and get – it doesn't necessarily have to be round 1, but I think at least in round 2 they have to take a big swing at getting a potential wide receiver.
So who are your highest ceiling wide receivers here? Because we're talking playmaking wide receivers. If they're already at that stage in their career, they're top 10 probably. And most of the wide receivers, most of the scout gurus out there aren't listing these wide receivers as top 15 in the draft players. So is there a guy that's even that elite out there for you?
Yeah, see, this class is weird. I don't know if I would call it a bad class. I agree. It's not top heavy. Like there's not that number 1 guy. It's kind of like pick your poison. But if you're going with pure ceiling, I personally don't love this guy, but Quentin Johnston's a great example of just enormous ceiling if you're going to take that risk. Like he's definitely not the consensus wide receiver 1, but he has that potential to just be amazing. Or personally, my favorite, I think, who has a crazy ceiling would be, a guy like Zay Flowers, who's undersized, but just, he's been incredible at Boston College with, basically no help. And obviously, all the Bears fans will say JSN, who I also like, but I don't know. It's interesting. I definitely think they need to. I think they need to try and come away with a home run hitter in round 2. But we'll see.
I wouldn't be against it. I just don't want them to feel. I just don't think they'll feel pressured to do so. Like I think if somebody falls that they like a lot. If you're up against I mean, we're assuming they have a higher second round pick. If they don't even have a higher second round pick, if they end up just blowing their load on Will Anderson at number 1, then then we're talking about 57
moot point.
and then like you're up against offensive line or wide receiver, and we're almost in the same conversation we were in last year.
Right.
And then they're going to take a cornerback at 57, and we're going to be like, well, at least we have some material for the podcast, and we can say Brian Poles is stupid. But that's not going to happen because we're going to get all the picks and all the free agents and all the love. It's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful.
Yeah. So.
Only the good players on the Bears this year.
Did you guys see what Mike McDaniel said when he was asked what traits he looks for in a player at the combine?
No.
He said the best traits. That was his answer.
That guy's a piece of work, man.
He's probably stoned out of his mind most of the time. That's the problem.
He's hilarious. I feel
He's
like
funny.
I would love playing for that dude.
Hogan Johns has been talking about trying to have him on just because he's so interesting. Yeah, because he's just an interesting guy. So that would be a fun conversation.
The Bears made a coaching hire.
Yeah,
he hired an
offensive line
coach, which is weird because this guy was an assistant coach on the Titans, and now he's taking an assistant offensive line role.
What's interesting is, did you hear what Eberflus said about the offensive line room and Chris Morgan?
Yeah, he said it was great. He said the camaraderie in there was great, like a nice tight knit group. They all like playing with each other, right?
Yeah, and he said Chris Morgan was phenomenal.
Yeah, I do think Morgan did a good job for what he was given with. I mean, I thought our run game was pretty solid this year. Obviously, the pass game needed work, but I have no complaints about Morgan. But as far as I know, this guy we added from the Titans was a pretty solid coach. He was their tight ends coach when they had when Johnny Smith was having his best years there.
Well, the Titans have been a physical team over the last couple of years.
I really feel that means nothing. Tight end coach, so a talented player had a good year. Whoop-de-doo. Good job, buddy. You were there for that.
Well, normally with coaching hires, I just judge it off how the other team feels about losing that guy. And it seemed like Titans fans were fairly upset, so I'll take that as a positive.
I don't know who our tight ends coach is, so I'm surprised they're upset.
Now you know who our assistant offensive line coach is.
No, you don't, because you haven't told me his name yet. I can't even remember his damn name.
Luke Stickle.
We're just hiring all the Lukes. Getsy, Steichel.
Oh, yeah. I'm next.
Barry. That's just wonderful.
We got to get you hired.
I'm working on it.
That way you can say, as a current NFL scout.
Stop. As a current NFL coach.
You think you can coach people? Like, it's not how much you know ball, but it's how much you can convey to people what the fuck they're supposed to do. Coaching's like managing, and managing's tough, man. It's hard to manage employees.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not the job. It's getting people to do what you want them to do.
He's 37 years old from Boston. Princeton grad.
Smart guy. Smarty guy from Boston. Luke probably knows him.
Oh, yeah. I'm at beers.
They're neighbors.
Me, Getsy, and Steckle are going to go out to a bar together in Boston for St. Patty's Day. Celebrate our trade for the number 1 pick.
If you do, ask him who we're drafting.
Will Anderson, because he wants you to get us the jerseys.
Hey, man, I'll be on board. And if Roger Goodell reads Will Anderson off the card, I will be celebrating, and I will put lots of tweets out. Happy.
You're gonna be crying, dude, because Bears fans are gonna make fun of him.
Well, he'll just have to get over it, and I'll just have to be callous to their criticism.
What about you, Chris? Do you want this to happen just to see how Joe reacts to it?
No. Just to see how Joe reacts to it? No.
I'm kind of hoping more for it just to see how Joe handles his guy being drafted by the Bears.
Well, because you're gonna get the bozos out there who's like, oh, he got like they're gonna pick like the highlight of him getting stuffed and be like, Brian Bulaga ate his lunch, waste of a first round pick.
Oh, no. What was the last first round pick the Bears have had that has been like really, really good?
Roquan Smith. Everybody loved it, and he did well as a rookie. He was a great rookie.
Yeah, it was a good pick. It worked out.
I feel like I don't. There's so many times the Bears just mess up their first round pick. I just can't even. There's like. I could count probably on one hand how many first-round picks I remember that actually panned out.
Right.
Kyle Long, which at the time that was horrible. Like I was like, oh my god.
Same with Kyle Fuller.
Such a reach.
Kyle Fuller was kind of a questionable pick, and it took him a minute, but he turned out.
Yeah, but you see, like even like those guys,
Leonard Floyd was sucked.
Those guys were like
Kevin
good,
White.
but like they weren't like, I don't know. Other teams draft Pro Bowlers in the first round. We draft guys who are just pretty good for 5 years and aren't on the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like.
I mean, even Roquan, it was like, yeah, he had that one really great year, and then I feel like he kind of just people will debate about this, but he kind of went downhill a little bit.
Yeah, he did. He did. Maybe we can
again not on the team long term.
Redraft Cedric Benson.
Obviously, not that good of a guy that you couldn't not have him.
There were so many different ways they could have gone that draft, Joe. And the downside was that Thomas Jones was freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, he was
for them. And they could have signed almost anybody else to be Cedric Benson's role. And then he goes on to like the Bengals and was phenomenal for a few years. Like he was really solid. Anyway, boys, what else we got? Anything?
That's it, baby. Tune into the combine and
tune into the combine.
That's it.
When does the first person weigh in, Luke? Tomorrow?
I think it's Thursday.
Thursday starts the combine activities.
All right.
I think they do the weigh-ins the day they work out now. I don't think they
3
do the
p.m.
Before, so.
All right.
Yeah. Saturday was early player arrival for defensive linemen and linebackers. Monday, pre-registration and pre-exam orientation team interviews. This is the defensive line and linebacker schedule. They're up first. Wednesday, ortho exam, media interviews, NFLPA meeting, team interviews continue, and then Thursday, measurements and on-field workouts. So yes, Luke looks like he's correct. Measurements and on-field workouts are on the same day for each group, starting on Thursday.
I'm excited. I might try to watch some in the background while
you're wheeling and dealing, baby.
While I'm wheeling and dealing. So yeah, that'd be fun.
Starting at it'll be televised. It looks like it's starting at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Is what it looks like.
Perfect.
On the NFL Network.
All right, Joe.
Can't wait.
Take us home, baby.
Joe.
Bear down, Chicago Bears. Make every play clear the way to victory. Bear down, Chicago Bears. Put up a fight with the might so fearlessly. We'll never forget the way you thrill the nation with your T formation. Bear down, Chicago Bears. And don't forget why you're wearing the crown. You're the pride and joy of Illinois, Chicago Bears. Bear down.